Let's continue exploring the universe within art and the art behind farming. I'm your host, Amledu. And in this episode, we're going to build a drowned farm so that you can get all of the tridents that you will ever need, as well as nautilus shells and copper and rotten flesh, all sorts of goodies. And best of all, this farm is super crazy simple. We'll also go over how to build an item sorter at the end of the video if you're interested in that. Here are the basic materials that you will need to build this farm. Now, of course, stuff like the hoppers and chest will all depend on how big you want your storage to be, but then like the ice and the water buckets is either or. Either you'll need ice or water, it is up to you. Then like the scaffolding and the magma are totally optional, just like having impaling on your tridents. It is not necessary, but will improve the rates. The first thing to do to build this farm is to find an ocean. You want to be at least 100 blocks from any sort of land, so like islands or the shore. Now if you're playing on Sim Distance 4, we're going to go up by 64 scaffolding. Sim Distance 4 is the default if you don't know. But if you're playing on a higher sim distance, you want to go up by 2 stacks of scaffolding. And of course, you don't have to use scaffolding if you don't want to, it just gives you an easy way up here if you fall off. Then we're going to build a platform up here at any size. It does not matter how big this platform is. Then somewhere on this platform, we're going to go up by 4 blocks and place a hopper pointed off to the side in the direction that you want your storage system to be. Place a rail on top of that hopper, then a block floating above that rail. Now place 2 more blocks, and then 4 magma. Now this magma could just be regular blocks if you want to. The magma will help a tiny bit, but is not necessary at all. So the hopper will have 4 blocks of air between it and the platform, and the magma will have 6 blocks of air in between it and your platform. But next up, we need to surround the magma in a 2-block tall wall, using any sort of blocks or glass. You can use glass if you want to see the mobs inside, or you can just use solid blocks if you want it to be cheap. But just go up by 2 blocks all around the magma, and again, you can use glass here in the front if you want to see the mobs in the kill chamber. That's totally up to you whether you use glass or solid blocks. But build what you see here, and now we need a slab, an upper slab, above this frontmost block, above the rail. Then a block diagonally up from that slab, and again, this can be a glass. If you want to see the mobs as they die, you can just use glass. It is totally up to you. Then we're going to cap this off and go up by 1 more block around here so that we are left with something like this. Now in the farthest corner away from the slab, we're going to place a bucket of water. So in that corner, that is completely opposite from the little stick out part that has your slab, so that the water flows toward the slab and then is stopped by it. Then come up here and we need to place a temporary block on top of the slab so that we can place a piston facing toward the magma, and then a temporary block next to the slab so that we can place another piston facing the same way, diagonally down from the first one. Then place redstone dust on top of the bottom piston, then go over by 2 temporary blocks and place a solid block on top of the second one. And now we're going to build this kind of backwards Y shape out of 4 solid blocks like so. Place a redstone dust on the top of that bottom one, a torch on the side that will power the dust, powering the pistons, then a repeater on top facing the dust, and it should start freaking out. Now we're going to place a lever anywhere on this bottom block to turn it off. And if you place the lever on the bottom of that block, you can reach it from your platform. However, if you want to run the lever down to your platform, all we have to do is alternate between torches and solid blocks, going all the way down. Then place a lever on the bottom one so that you can easily toggle your clock from your platform without having to jump or look straight up in the air. That is totally up to you. So now this kill chamber should have a 2-block tall hole right there next to the magma, then a 1-block tall hole next to that upper slab, like so. So once you get all of that built, now we're going to extend this tube up by 14 more blocks, so that the tube is 17 blocks from the magma to the top. So we're going to go up by 14 blocks from what we already have. And again, if you want to use glass, you totally can to see the mobs falling, but these topmost blocks need to be solid blocks. So the top of this tube will be 24 blocks away from your bottom platform. But then fill in the corners and place 4 buttons inside the hole, 2 on each side, like so. Now from any side, we need to go diagonally up by 14 blocks. So just work your way diagonally up by 14 blocks. And then of course, all of these bottom ones are not necessary. You can leave them or get rid of them. That is totally up to you. we just need to have 14 blocks that are going diagonally up, like so. And now we're just going to build an upside down pyramid using those blocks as markers. So we're just going to go all the way around, then go up diagonally, and then go all the way around out of solid blocks, until we have filled in all 14 rows with solid blocks. Now along the outer edge on the 14th row, we're going to go up by one glass block along the entire outer edge. The glass is just to prevent spawns, but also it is a block that cannot be flooded, because the next step is to place water along every single glass block. So we can either do this with water buckets or with ice. Now the problem with water buckets is you will need to place a water bucket on every single glass. There's no way to create an infinite source up here, except for off to the side. And if you skip a glass, you will know it because it will create a little indentation in the water. That means that there is no water bucket next to that glass. So water buckets is a thing, but if you do have access to regular ice, not pack ice or blue ice, but regular ice, we can actually just place a line of temporary blocks diagonally down from the glass, then place regular ice on top of those blocks next to the glass. If we mine this ice with anything other than silk touch, the ice will turn into water. And so this actually will be a much easier way to flood this platform. And if you need an ice farm, I just posted one not too long ago, so I will link that here on the screen and in the video description. But if you do use ice, don't forget to remove your temporary row of blocks here at the top. So when you're done, there should be water next to every single glass block, and it will flow all the way down and get stopped by the buttons. Now all that's left is to build a platform that will block the light. So we're going to go up by, let's say, 15 blocks, and then using solid blocks, we're going to build a frame that is directly above our glass, all the way around directly above the glass, so that you end up with this. Now, we do not want to place any solid blocks above the water. We want this to have surface spawns and not cave spawns. So we need to fill in this frame with leaves. Leaves will block the light, but still allow surface spawns for the farm. So everywhere that there is water needs to be leaves. And you could always use tinted glass if you want to, but that's really expensive compared to leaves. Now, from your frame, we need to go out by 7 more solid blocks on each side. Then you can either fill this into a giant square, or you can cut out the corners diagonally, like you see here, just to make it look a little fancy and to save on some blocks. That is totally up to you. It will work either way. But we need to have 8 solid blocks outside of every single leaf, going all the way around. So when you're done, it will look like this. Now, if you want to spawn-proof the solid blocks, you can place buttons on top of all of them, or you can place slabs on top of all of them. You probably can place torches up here too, but I'm not sure if that interacts with the leaves. I don't think it does, but I've never actually tested it, because you actually don't have to spawn-proof up here if you don't want to. You know, things won't really spawn because you'll be too far away. So the spawn-proofing is totally up to you. But when you're done, your water platform should start spawning drowned, because it should be pretty dark in here. And we are so close to being done. Now we need a minecart with hopper on top of this rail to pick up the items that are dropped by the drowned. And one reason I like to use magma is that it will kill some of the drowned even when the farm is not running. Then if the farm is running, the magma just helps the trident kill it, especially if you don't have impaling. But we need to throw a trident in front of both of the pistons. And preferably this trident should have impaling 5, just to kill the drowned faster. You know, but if you don't have impaling, that is totally fine. A regular trident would work just the same, especially with the magma to help it out. But now, the drowned will just die when they come into contact with the trident killer. Now when it comes to using this farm, just stand anywhere on this platform, but preferably off to the side, kind of in the front, so that the experience will float down to you. And finally, for the collection system, you could simply add a chest coming off of this hopper, then add more chests and hoppers going down if you want to, or if you want to have an item sorter, we will quickly build that. Start off by placing a temporary row of blocks so that we can place more hoppers pointed away from the first one, so the first one is going into the front of that line. Then next to the second hopper, the one that does not have the minecart in front of it, we're going to start building a non-stackable item filter. So place 3 blocks, then a target, then 2 more blocks, then a piece of glass, 3 dust, and a comparator with a torch on the front side of the target. So for this non-stackable item filter, the comparator needs to be looking at the top line of hoppers, so that when it sees a non-stackable item passing through the line, it will unlock itself and pull that item out. And it's always a good idea to build 2 of these next to each other, just in case it skips a non-stackable item. So if you want to, just tile another one of these right up against the one that we just built. But for the stackable item filters, we're going to skip 1 hopper, and then build exactly what we just built, but 1 block lower. So again, leave a space between the non-stackable filter and the stackable ones. Then build the exact same thing, just 1 block lower, so the comparator is looking at the block under the topmost hopper line. The other difference is we need a hopper pointed into that topmost block. Make sure that hopper is pointed into that block and not into a chest, not down, but into that block. Then place your chest with hoppers pointed into them, and now inside of the hopper that is pointed into the block, this is your filter hopper. So you need at least 1 of the stackable item that is being sorted in the first slot. Then you need in the last 4 slots a single stackable item that will never be in the farm. So in this case I'm using seeds because seeds will never be dropped by drowned. And now we can just duplicate these right next to each other for every item that we want to filter for. In this case there are 3 different stackable items that can be dropped by drowned. So we're going to build 3 of these right next to each other in the exact same way. Just remember that these second row of hoppers that are pointed into the blocks, these are your filter hoppers. So again, in the first slot of the filter hopper, we need at least 1 of the item being sorted. Then in the last 4 slots, we need at least 1 of an item that stacks to 64 that will never be in the farm. And you'll always have 41 of the sorted item that is trapped in these filter hoppers. So if you're not sure why it's not dropping copper or your chests aren't filling up with shells, it's because 41 items have to be trapped in that filter hopper before it starts pushing items into the chest. And then of course, we need an overflow chest that will collect the items that get skipped by the sorters, or if one of the sorters fill completely up, the items will need some place to go. So just build another row of chests with hoppers pointed into them at the end of the hopper line, and you're done. And from here, you could expand your storage even more, you can expand your platform, whatever you want to do. But when you're using this farm, don't go any higher or lower than your original platform, and stay fairly close to the minecart, but slightly off to the side so the experience can escape and make it down to you. And with that, you will have all of the Tridents and Nautilus Shells that you could ever possibly need, as well as some bonus copper and rotten flesh to trade to your villagers. Now, using this as a copper farm, I wouldn't recommend. Like, you could probably make some crazy max rate drown farm that like spawns drowned and converts zombies into drowned and just drown to get as much copper as you could possibly muster. But even then, I'm kind of inquisitive about how much copper that would actually give you, especially since copper is the most common ore in the game. But, if you want me to play with that, let me know, and I totally will. But that's all we got for this episode. If you liked it, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. Be sure to leave a comment, even if it's just to say hi, and always remember that you are totally awesome. But above all, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye!